Hello, everyone. It's Double Shine here. Hopefully, you guys have been having a good time with DMM Annihilation. Personally, I've been absolutely loving it. Sitting here at almost 87k points now. Breaches have been going great. And today, what I wanted to kind of talk about now that a lot of people are starting to get more points from the breaches is basically what kind of bosses you could look to do, as well as sort of like a general mindset of how you should approach bosses when it comes to gearing, how to get there, how to avoid PK'ers, and all that stuff. So today's going to be kind of like a top 10 rundown going through what I consider to be some of the best bosses that you can, get started with to get you not only drops but also to get you points as well, so you can continue to progress your account. Because ultimately, points for more sigils means you're going to do more damage, and that's going to open up more bossing in the future. One of the things about bossing in Deadman mode compared to something like Leagues, where in Leagues, it's really kind of the mindset of like, okay, I'm going to rush raids, get all the absolute best gear. And then now that I have a shadow, I can go and kind of send every other boss and just sort of destroy them in like 3 seconds, right? And Deadman's a little bit different, where basically the benefit of having all of these really powerful sigils, things like augmented thralls, 60% damage reduction, the 75% accuracy, 10% life steal, like you are actually really powerful. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to send bosses with fairly minimal gear and with very budget setups that you ordinarily would not really be able to get efficient kills in. So that's kind of the mindset that you need to be taking when you're doing any kind of deadman mode and trying to get the bosses. Is like, you don't need the absolute best gear. You should be looking to get more of a budget setup that you can send. Now, I'm going to get into the bosses in just a second here. But before I talk about bosses, I kind of wanted to sort of split up bosses into two different categories. And that's bosses that are found sort of in the open area, like kind of like a world boss. Basically, it's just out there in the open and anybody can run up on it. This would be something like the crazed archaeologist, right? He's just here. It's just open and there's a limited amount per world. It could also be something like Cerberus, for example, over in the Taverley dungeon, where there's only 3 spawns per world and anybody can run up and get you. That's like kind of one part of the equation. And then the other part of the equation are bosses that are found in instances. So this is going to be things such as Vorkath. Vorkath's a great example of this, where the run to Vorkath is dangerous, but once you're inside of Vorkath, there is literally zero risk. You could stay there for basically hours, right? Bosses like Grotesque Guardians are like that. Once you're in the instance, you can go there for really long trips. And it's good to kind of separate those two, because the approach that you take is going to depend on what kind of boss it is. For the bosses that are out in the open, especially bosses that are out in the open in multi, where you can get run up by a clan, you really want to try to minimize how much risk you're bringing, right? You kind of want to go in as little gear as possible. So let's say, for example, I'm doing the Chaos Elemental over here, right? This is a multi-area deep wildy, right? I'm not going to be bringing more than like a couple 100k tops. I'm going to be trying to go with as little like gear as possible and as little investment, because I'm just there to farm boss kills, try to get some loot, and then get out, right? If I bring a lot of gear, it does not matter. There's no amount of gear that is going to save you from like 3 people running up and barraging you. And if you are good enough to escape that, honestly, this video is probably not for you, right? And even in singles, for example, like let's say you're doing a boss like um, Cerberus, or we can do like the singles wieldy bosses. So let's say you're doing like Artio over here, right? It's a singles boss. If somebody runs up on you and they have like a 70 mil or like 100, they have absolute crazy gear, right? It's going to be pretty difficult for you to get out. And I would say for the kind of average person who's just getting into DMM and not very confident with their ability to escape, you don't really want to be bringing too much gear. Now, the opposite side of that are the instance bosses. So again, this would be something like Vorkath, right? Or something like Alchemical Hydra. Bosses that once you're inside the instance, you kind of want to stay in there as long as possible. And especially now that you have the looting bag, which you should basically be bringing pretty much everywhere, right? You can actually go for very, very long kill trips. And like, you don't really have to leave. You have a lot of life steal. You have your blighted overloads for a lot of damage output. You have, brews that you can bring, right? And for that stuff, you actually do want to sort of be taking more risk. You kind of want to invest in a bigger gear setup. So If I was going for something like the single bosses, maybe I'll bring a zombie axe, which is like 500, 600k. But when I'm going to something like Vorkath, I'm bringing like a 10 mil loadout because the only risky part is like this, 5 to 10 second run. But once I'm inside, I'm here for like an hour, hour and a half, and I want to maximize my efficiency when I'm inside of there. I'm not saying that you can't bring a budget setup. Like, you don't have to bring that much if you're scared of dying. And obviously, you shouldn't be bringing your entire bank because you can get PK'd. But the idea is that when you're doing instance bosses, you want to bring more risks so that you can get more efficient kills, and that's going to lead to more drops, which is stuff that you can sell, and so on and so on. Right? It's like that's where you really want to milk and get more damage done. Right? Okay. So why do I talk about those two bosses? That's basically the reason why I talk about that is because whatever you choose to do, just make sure you know, am I doing this in an open area, especially one that's multi? Because if you're doing it in a multi area, like the thermonuclear smoke devil, for example, right? That's a multi. If you go there, you're gonna get killed in like it's just a matter of time, right? You are a sitting duck basically, and eventually you will get scouted. Whereas with the instance bosses, the mindset should be about I just need to dodge that entry fee, that little entryway, and then I'm basically safe. And then you just bring a safe teleport back home. Usually I'll use like Ring of Returning or something and get right back to the Grand Exchange, and I'm good to go. Anyways, so that's the two kind of bosses. Let's actually start talking about the specific bosses and stuff. I know that was a little bit of a rant, but I do think it's important because once you can kind of analyze it that way, it's a lot easier to understand how much risk you want to bring. When I talk about these bosses, I'm mostly going to be talking about it from a like melee mindset because I do think melee is probably the easiest way to come at DMM. And I'm going to be rating the bosses in basically three scales, which is going to be the risk, which is basically how hard is it to actually do that boss and how likely are you to die. The loot, which is basically how good the rewards for doing that boss are. And the third one is going to be sort of the requirements. Some bosses are going to have very, very minimal requirements. Obviously, things like Vorkath are going to be a little bit harder to get to, not only because your stats are going to need to be a bit better, but you're also going to need to unlock the Dragon Slayer 2 quest, which is like 5,000 points, right? And, most people don't have just 5,000 kind of sitting around if they're still looking for a boss to farm. And also for this top 10 list, I don't plan on going in like this is the 10th best and this is the first best. It's more so just like ideas and suggestions for you. And it's going to progress more in terms of accessibility. And so the earlier bosses are going to be bosses that you could probably be doing at like bracket 3, bracket 4. And the later bosses are probably stuff you're going to need to definitely be in bracket 4, close to high combat stats. And if you're not in those top brackets, I would really recommend just keep training your combats as much as possible. I cannot stress this enough. Being in the top bracket is infinitely better, infinitely safer than being in that bracket 1, bracket 2 zone. There's just so many demons running around with insane PK setups, and unless you have a specialized build, I would highly recommend just keep training your combat. All that said, we got that yap out of the way. Let's start talking about the bosses. And the first one I want to talk about is honestly, it's so simple, but it's freaking Scurrius. I think this boss is absolutely so sick. The good thing about this boss is that it is in mass worlds. Like there's no private instance, so you have to do it in masses. But as long as you're there doing damage, you will still get credit. You will get 5 points a kill up to 100 boss kills. That's something you should know. You can only do bosses up to 100. And you can still get loot, and you can actually get the Scurrius spine. I think it's still a 1 in 33 for everybody. So it's actually a really, really easy way. Now, the thing is, there is no private instance, right? So if we go over here, for example, you'll see there's usually, a small group. This is the top bracket. So there's always like a small group over here fighting the boss and stuff like that. And it's just a great way to trade. But like, look at these guys, right? This guy's bringing Sulfur Blades, which is maybe 100k loadout, but they're not bringing anything else, right? Because when you're at a boss like this, which is a multi-combat area, right? Occasionally what's going to happen is a group of like 3 to 5 people are just going to come. They're going to barrage everybody there, and they're going to completely wipe you out, right? And you have to understand that that is just sort of the nature of DMM. You're not really ever going to be able to escape that. And it's kind of better to just sort of accept it and, kind of have fun with it and just sort of take it as you will. I've been sharing this meme of this possum in a donut store because I think it perfectly encapsulates everything about Deadman mode, which is just getting in, getting your loot, and if they come and kill you, it's okay. You've already gotten all the credit for it, right? But I think Scurrius is a fantastic place to start training your combats. Again, if you get a bone mace, you can really just send that and get a lot of free damage. He actually does drop some pretty good loot. Like when I was doing this boss in bracket 3 and during my hour of immunity, I was getting rune and stuff like that. So overall, I think Scurrius is a fantastic start. And at 5 points per kill, you can definitely start to rack them up. And additional spines can be used to train like your prayer or your hit points or throw it into some of your weaker combat stats as well. So for me, I would say Scurrius in terms of like in terms of risk is going to be a 1. Obviously, it is super risky in there, but you really don't need anything at all to kill the boss. So you can really go with like absolutely nothing. In terms of loot, I would also give it probably like a 1 because it's not really that good. But I think in terms of accessibility, it's a 5 out of 5 for me because it's just so easy. I think anybody can get into it. You really just need like overheads. And if you have the restoration sigil, which gives you lifesteal, you're kind of completely chill. Okay, moving on to the next boss. So this one's a little bit of a little unfair for me to point out, but I would actually say the next boss I would like to talk about are two skilling bosses, which is Wintertodt and Tempoross. Now, I know skilling bosses are probably not what you're here for. However, I think that both of these bosses actually are really good because it's a very, very like they're both safe now, right? So actually, Wintertodt, this area is not safe. The Tempoross docks are safe if you get over there. And I can kind of show how to get there. But once you're inside of Wintertodt, it actually is totally safe. And you can see there's always like people who are chilling here, sending some games. You actually get 20 points per kill, which is really, really good. And with this, there's a sigil that you can get called the Sigil of Hoarding, which actually makes a lot of these mini games quite good. So you get 5 times the amount of points from mini games, including Wintertodt, Tempoross. You get like 5 times the pulls, right? And that's kind of the cool part about doing Wintertodt or Tempoross is that I think that there are just super, super safe options that if you have like zero cash, you have no idea what you're doing, you can't even afford like a rune scimitar or anything like that, and you just want to make a little bit of money. I think that this is a perfectly fine, chill way to just spend a little bit of time. I did this after like a 15-hour stream. I just hopped into a bubble bath, did some Tempoross for like an hour, and it was honestly super chill. And you will get some loot. Now, not all of it is going to be super valuable because most of it is kind of, there's a lot of it going in the market. But yeah, I would recommend Wintertodt, very good. You can take a games necklace over and basically take nothing at all, except maybe like an axe, like a rune axe. And then when it's safe outside, then you can actually go and, check all of your crates and whatnot. As for Tempoross, you simply will get there by taking the boat from Al Kharid. So that would be if we go over here, right? You can probably just like run here from Lumbridge basically, and there's a little boat here. You'll take it to the ruins of Unka, and I think this entire area now is safe, and Tempoross is safe as well. So that place is really, really good. Excellent place to train your fishing, your fire making. Yeah, it's just really, really good. I would actually recommend for both Wintertodt and Tempoross also to grab the unlocks these guys right here, they're the enhanced harvest. Yeah, the triple resource one. So you get the triple resource one and the what's it called? Efficiency, which gives you a double resource. And these actually stack up to give you 6 times the resource. So it can be a really, really nice way to basically just smash these out. Like I know a lot of people are doing Tempoross with those. And they were getting like solo kills with there's one other relic for Tempoross I'll point out, Infernal Chef, which automatically cooks the stuff. So now you're getting 6 times the fish and you're cooking half of them, and people are getting like solo kills in like 2.5 minutes, like 2 downing Tempoross. Really nice way of getting points, trains your skills, and you're actually still going to get some pretty good gold. Now, it doesn't train your combat, but again, this is something that you should be doing if you're just trying to chill, just trying to have a good time. So for me, Wintertodt Tempoross, in terms of accessibility, again, 5 out of 5. In terms of risk, I mean, I'll say like 1 out of 5 because you really should not be dying doing these bosses. In terms of loot, I would probably put it at a 1 out of 5. Again, you're not going to get a lot, but you're going to get at least started. And it's something to do if you're, maybe a little bit tilted, maybe a little bit demoralized, just to kind of get you off your feet. Moving on now. Okay. I know skilling boss is probably not what you wanted to hear, but this next boss is something that I felt very, very confident about, and that is Amoxliatl. So let me go ahead and show you guys how to kind of get over there. And to do Amoxliatl, you will need the quest, The Heart of Darkness, right? But once you actually complete the Heart of Darkness, you can get this pendant of eights. And you can actually attune it to this pillar over here, and you can get right back to the temple. Now, I will say that this little area outside this is actually a multi-combat area. So you might want to be careful. You might run into people here, but honestly, I've never seen anybody here, so I think it's super chill. And then down here, it's a very, very small run. Not super dangerous. This place is singles, so you just need to run over to the door. And then this is kind of the first example of an instance boss where basically you can go in there, right? And once I'm inside, right? Once I've clicked this, I can sit here like I think I sat here for like 60 kills basically, just chilling on this boss, right? Again, with all the sigils that you get, you might not be as powerful as I am at this point, but you could just kind of chill and sit on the boss and honestly just kind of have a good time killing the boss, farming up some kills. And the Amoxliatl loot table is actually pretty good. You get a lot of rune items. You have an increased chance of getting the Glacial Tomatli, which is a really good like starter melee weapon. So I think that's a really good option. The one thing about instance bosses like this that is a bit of a drawback, especially if you're a lower combat level, is that when you're in an instance, you don't get the full boosted experience rates. You actually get only 3 times the rate. So if you are really low combat level, you might not want to like prioritize this just because you still want to be focusing on getting your combats up because again, the more damage you do, the more points you get, the more loot you get. It's all a big cycle, right? So I think this boss is great. It is 5 points a kill, which is not amazing, but you can also get some free combat achievements. And I had a really good time doing 100 kills of this. I probably made, maybe like a mil or so and just Alex and stuff like that. So I had a good time with it. Like this boss, it was pretty fun. Now, the one thing I did want to point out when it comes to instances and why I really like Amoxliatl is a lot of people have been asking about how to get Slayer levels. And Amoxliatl actually counts as a lesser Nagua for a task, which you can get assigned from Konar. I think she assigns about like 100 or so. Now, when you pick your own sigil, and I'll kind of show the sigil for that, it's called the Sigil of Slaughter. That lets you pick your own Slayer task, right? It does cost 45 Slayer points, but when you go to Konar, you don't get to pick your location. You can pick the Nagua, but you don't get to pick your location. So you can kind of game that because if the only quest that you've done is Heart of Darkness, but you haven't done Moons of Peril, which is kind of the other spot that you can get assigned, then you'll only get assigned Lesser Nagua in this dungeon. So if you haven't done Moons of Peril yet, but you have done Heart of Darkness, you can go get the Konar task, and then you basically get a free opportunity to hit this boss. And again, for instance bosses like this is where you do kind of want to be a bit more confident in bringing risk because if your only danger, is this like 5 second, 10-second trip, then maybe you could afford to bring like a black mask with you. Maybe you could bring something a little bit stronger that you can use, right? I've been thinking about making like a whole weapon progression guide. I won't go into it too much because obviously I go on these tangents and stuff. But just in terms of melee stuff, starting with the Tomatli, then maybe going to like a Torag hammer setup with Swashbuckler is great. Maybe you could pick up a zombie axe. These really good budget melee weapons are just insanely strong. Vestus Spear, another great option as well. But yeah, I really like Amoxliatl. Excellent boss. Highly, highly recommend. And it's kind of fun to be doing like a real boss that's not Scurrius. Oh, sorry. And just in case I didn't say this, the reason why Slayer in instances is really good is because you do get the full boosted Slayer experience. So you don't get a reduction in your Slayer experience while doing this. That's very big. And it's going to come a lot in handy because a lot of the Slayer spots are just really crowded right now. So yeah, very, very helpful. Okay, moving on. I just talked about Moons of Peril. Well, it turns out that Moons of Peril is actually a really good spot as well. And I can kind of show that one off. Let me very quickly try to port over there. Okay, so Moons of Peril, you do have to do the quest, Perilous Moons. Yeah. And then you can get here using the bird, or if you want, you could spend they're quite expensive, but it's like 40K right now for like a calcified moth, and that'll teleport you there directly. I think I can also make the statue here with this this pendant, which is really cool too. I didn't even know about that, so that's actually pretty awesome. Okay, so you can also actually use this to do, I think it's Ralos's Rise. That will be your teleport over here, or you can build the landing site. But basically, the one thing to know about Moons is, unlike Amoxliatl, Moons is kind of an open area, and it's also multi-combat, right? So whereas with Amoxliatl, you're a little bit more incentivized to bring decent gear and kind of bring like a nicer loadout. With Moons of Peril, you definitely want to be going for budget options. And luckily, budget options are actually really good for the Moons of Peril. the boss really favors defensive options. So I was bringing like a rune plate body. I was bringing rune plate legs. A little tip is if you're running ruinous powers, I would actually recommend swapping your prayers back so you can use piety or chivalry instead, because you actually do want the defense. You don't get that if you're on the ruinous powers instead. And that was a big mistake I made. So make sure you're doing that. Um, but yeah, just bringing some like super easy tank options. You don't have to go super, super crazy. I would say, again, rune plate body. Don't need to go Barrows if you don't want to. And then for your weapons, for Blood Moon, I would probably just go Sulfur Blades. This is like 100K or something like that. For the Blue Moon, maybe grab Tomatli. And then honestly, for the Eclipse guy, I don't think it really matters, but maybe just bring like, I don't know, like you could probably bring like a dragon longsword or something like that, and you'll be totally fine. Just because you just want a slow, hard hitting weapon for like the clones and stuff like that, right? So that's kind of the idea behind gearing for this. And for your actual setup, I would basically just bring some like overloads and so I'm not gonna carry around too much with me because I'm kind of running around a little bit aimlessly here, just starting to show off. But yeah, I would just like bring some overloads and stuff, and maybe like some brews if you're taking a bit of damage, and that way you don't even really have to do that much prep, and you can just kind of get inside of Moons of Peril. Now, the reason why I like Moons of Peril so much, even though it is quite dangerous, is that it feels like the loot inside is quite consistent, and you can very easily kind of get into this rhythm of just doing the three bosses and sort of moving. I usually go Eclipse, then Blue, then Blood, right? And you can kind of get into this rhythm and then like checking your chests and stuff. But yeah, it just feels like you kind of enter this really nice flow state of like hitting the bosses. And honestly, I haven't really seen too much like PK action here. I did 33 chests. So I did a lot of kills here. I didn't see anything too crazy. I think there was one guy outside once, but for the most part, it's pretty damn chill. You might think, okay, I'm safe inside the boss instances. No, you are not. It's singles in the open area, but once you're actually inside, I believe it is multi combat. So it can be a little bit scary, basically. It is multi combat in here. So yeah, it's a little bit terrifying, and I would just be a little bit careful once you're actually inside. Um, yeah, I'll quickly leave here. Okay. Obviously, yeah, if you die, again, I would almost be happy to take the hit and not really worry about it. Now, I would recommend doing all three because, it just flows really nicely. But the really cool thing about doing moons in particular is that when you actually get your loot, and you finish up a full run, the chest that you get will give you an option to immediately bank whatever loot that you get. So if you do, like, you're not going to be sitting on a whole bunch of loot risking anything. All the loot that you get is sort of like permanently locked. You can send it straight to your bank, and that is completely safe. If you get a blood moon set or you get a blue moon set, like any of that stuff, just send it to your bank and you're good. This is actually, I can quickly show my let me see if I can show this real fast. Yeah, this is my collection log set. So you see, I got a lot of stuff in 35 chests. Like, we got a lot of loot, right? And the stuff, most of it, not everything is super expensive. It's some of this is like 500K. I think this guy's like 1 mil or something like that. But it's a pretty consistent amount of loot that you're getting. Collection logs are also more points as well. There's a lot of combat achievements in here. And the other thing that I found that was really, really cool about doing moons is that the tertiary loot, the kind of off drops that you get when you don't hit a collection log piece, are actually quite good as well. Um, in particular, this boss drops an obscene amount of water orbs, and people are buying up water orbs for I think like 5K a pop right now because they're trying to make battle salves to train their crafting. So I was actually making more money off of selling water orbs that I got here than the uniques I was getting. So honestly, pretty cool boss. The other thing that makes this boss pretty damn good, if you do want to grind it out, is that you get 10 points per moon that you kill. So if you do all three, you get 30 points per chest. And based on the testing that I did today, I believe this works out that you can do 100 of every single moon. It's not 100 chests, it's 100 of every single moon, right? So if each one gives 10 points, that's 1,000 from each moon. So you can get like over 3,000 points here if you include all the collection logs and the combat achievements and the one-time kill bonus. And also the quest itself is just fantastic as well. So highly, highly recommend moons. I feel like you could really get lost in here and just send kills. And if you die, you're probably making 5 times, 6 times the profit back. Let me see this guy. How are the drops today, sir? Again, you can make so much money back and you can bring like a very, very budget setup. This guy right here, I mean, this guy's bringing, a little bit more, but you don't even really need to bring that much. Again, very, very simple, easy setups, just something light that you're gearing up with and just slamming all the bosses with melee. So for me, I would say in terms of risk for this boss, you're probably looking at like a 3 out of 5 just because it is multi. So you don't really have a lot of chance of fighting back. Accessibility, probably like a 2 out of 5, just because this boss is not that hard to do. Like I think you can definitely do it if you're strong with melee and stuff like that. You got your swashbuckler and all that stuff. And then for loot, I would actually put this boss at like a 3 out of 5 because I think the loot here is really good and it's very, very consistent as well. So you're not going to be sitting here for very long periods of time, kind of waiting on a drop. You're immediately going to start getting that payback and start feeling good about all the bossing that you're doing. So that's Amoxliatl, Moons of Peril. Personally, I think those two bosses are absolute like slam dunk bosses right now. I think they are so, so, so good. And I highly recommend if you have not been doing them to give it a shot because I really think that they are just amazing bosses to be doing right now. All right, let's move on to the next set of bosses here. I'm going to try my best to get out here and kind of show it off. But the next boss I actually wanted to talk about was the Chaos Elemental. This is a boss that I did not think I would like very much. He's actually found out here near the Rogue's Castle, and usually I just get here by taking the lever from Artie or Edgeville, right? So that's kind of why I'm here in Artie right now. I could take it over. I just don't really have a way back, so I'm not going to go out there right now. But yeah, I really, really like going over and doing Chaos Elemental. I actually did 100 kills. It might be a little bit busy, but I didn't see too many people here. I think I only got PK'd like once or twice. This is a multi-area, so you're going to get killed, and if a team pops up on you, you're just instantly dead. You have to just accept that, right, and be willing to take that. But the boss itself is very easy to kill with a decent melee setup. Personally, I was running Torag hammers with Swashbuckler. That swashbuckler effect. Where is it? That swashbuckler effect, taking my Torag hammers from 5 tick to 4 tick. And outside of that, again, Amulet of Strength, maybe Black D hide or mixed hide, or honestly, like you could probably run like a super, super basic setup where you are doing like this is kind of what I would bring as like a super, super like rag setup. Something like, maybe a Nezi Helm starter set. We go like Torag's hammers, and like this is it. We just bring like some overloads. We're good to go. Maybe climbing boots, maybe get like rune gloves from the Barrows chest. And that's it. We're ready to go. Torag's hammers maybe 100, 150K, right? And then you just go out there, get some kills, bring your looting bag, and if you start getting some drops, maybe go and bank that. I was really impressed doing the Chaos Elemental, actually, at how much drops I was getting. I didn't really think I would be getting that much, but I started getting some Dragon Two-Handers, got some Dragon Pickaxes, and that's all like 100K, 150K just off Alks. So, we actually ended up doing a lot of kills there, and I had a really good time doing my 100 kills. I kind of did it during like not super busy hours, so maybe if you go when it's like middle of the day, it might be a little bit too active. But yeah, Chaos Elemental, absolutely love this boss. I think it's one of the best things you can do during your hour of immunity if you have that. And, just don't be afraid of dying. If you get a couple of drops and be like, 200, 300K, then just, try to find an exit out with like an obelisk or just, run south. And that's kind of it, So I wouldn't farm this boss like infinitely, but it's definitely something you can do for 100 kills or so because it does give you 10 points per kill. So it's actually a really good way of farming points while you get drops as well. Okay, now speaking of the Wildy, there is one other thing about the Wildy that I wanted to talk about. Oh, before I do that, let me rate Chaos Elemental. I'll say in terms of accessibility, probably like a 3 out of 5 because you do want to have somewhat good combat stats for the boss. If you're super, super weak, it's probably going to be a bit of a struggle. And you want to be bringing like a little bit of bruise and stuff like that. For loot, I would probably say like a 2 out of 5. It's not great, but you get a lot of points as well, which is nice. And you do get like a good amount of like mystic staffs and just random alks and stuff. And then for risk, probably like a 4 out of 5. You're kind of just accepting that you're going to die here, but because you don't have to bring a lot of loot, that 4 out of 5 risk just isn't really a big deal in my opinion. It's kind of like artificial risk because if you lose 100K on a setup, who cares? That's like that's like one drop that you can kind of pay for itself, right? Better off just kind of farming this boss and sort of being willing to like cough up the death. Take it as like a speed bump along your way. Okay, now that we've been talking about the Wildy, there's one other set that I wanted to kind of talk about, and that's actually these multi bosses that you can do. So that's going to be Vedion, Callisto, and Venenatis. Personally, I did 100 Callisto and 100 Venenatis. I think that even though these bosses are in multi, and you will definitely, definitely have a clan show up and barrage you and wipe you, these bosses are just complete printers. Like they drop unbelievable amounts of resources and alks. And if you hit one of the Void Waker pieces or anything like that, I mean, it's like several mil that you can get, right? So if you lose a 100k setup, but you hit a 2 mil drop one time, I mean that's 20 deaths that you're basically going even on, right? I think these guys are really good. I usually get out here with the Wilderness Crabs teleport and just run over. For Callisto, I'm usually doing this boss with a magic setup. I'll literally bring something like a staff of air. Like this is what I was bringing. I was bringing a staff of air, right? And like some surge sacks, which you can buy from the emblem trainer, maybe like 200, 300. And that's kind of it. I would just go in like monk robes or the dead man's chest, like literally nothing. And you don't really need monk robes because you have prayer now. But I would just go out there, hit the boss, bring some entangle runes, or have one guy like barraging on ancients or something like that. And yeah, it's pretty easy. It's weak to fire. I had a really good time. Did 100 with my clan. Now that's the one thing I didn't want to talk about though, is that if you are doing these multi bosses, you kind of do want to be doing them as a group because everybody's going to get kill credit for points, and you can only get like basically the top 10 people will get a minimum of 25% of the loot. So if you have a group of like 5 to 6 people or so, or up to 10 or so, maybe even like 12, whatever. I actually think these bosses are excellent, excellent, excellent to do. You get a lot of really crazy loot, a lot of great alks, potentially hit one of those really big drops that's going to sell for a lot. And yeah, overall, I just think that these are just, I was really impressed at how much I enjoyed these bosses. Of course, you do need a group with that. So, that's why I think in terms of accessibility, I would probably put this at like a 4 out of 5, just because it is pretty easy, but you do need a group. In terms of loot, I would put it at like a 4 out of 5. It's incredible how good the loot is. It's consistent. You have some big roll drops as well. And you're not really risking anything. So in terms of risk, I would probably put it at like a 3 out of 5 because you can bring very, very little. You will probably get wiped here. Almost certainly. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like don't overstay your welcome, but you are kind of a sitting duck. You're sort of waiting that eventually somebody's going to come sweep you. It's going to happen. So if you don't mind doing that, I think these bosses are great with a small team or a small group. I didn't talk about what to bring for Venenatis here, right? But for Venenatis in particular, I usually just went with again the Torag hammer setup and like just kill the little spiders that show up. You can like dart them or something like that. And yeah, this is just great. I'm not going too much into like all the bossing details and giving you a full guide on every single boss, but just sort of like the idea on what you should be doing, what you should be thinking about. But yeah, I did this with Torag hammers and stuff like that. Maybe like if you want to ball out, bring a zombie axe, but Torag hammer with swashbuckler, it gets the job done. It's really, really sick. Now let's talk about a couple other sort of traditional bosses. These are bosses that I think are more like standard to the Dead Man experience. You've probably already seen some guides on them, and I think we have to talk about. I mean, I don't think we can do a proper guide on Dead Man mode without talking about Barrows. Barrows is just, I mean, I feel like it just is, it screams DMM to me. It's probably one of the most like normal standard bosses that you can do very, very easily. Getting over there is very simple. You're just going to be going with like a Drayman staff. And what you're going to want to do is take the fairy ring to PK'ers. This puts you in the middle of the swamp, and this will actually save you time from having to go through the whole maze. Is you can actually just go PK'ers and then take this boat down. Now, getting over here is a little bit scary. This place actually right here near the boat is a multi-combat area. So for a little bit of time here, we actually are going to be in multi-combat. But as soon as you hit the boat, you're kind of safe, right? So unless you see like a team of like 10 people here, you're kind of chilling. The reason why Barrows is so good is because you can send this with like literally a staff of air and absolutely nothing, because the monsters themselves are weak to air spells. So with a staff of air and like some surge sacks, you don't even need to bring that. Maybe you can bring some blood runes, some like death runes, buy some wrath runes or something. But you can get a lot of distance by just hitting them, right? You get a chance to train your magic because it's out in the open world. So you're getting that full combat experience. It's actually a really good place to sort of learn how to escape from PK'ers as well, because there's a lot of like really tricky ways that you can get away from them. because everybody's crypt downstairs is a little bit different. So as long as you sort of look for that, it's quite easy to get away. So PK'ers, you will usually see a lot of PK'ers here. Don't make the same mistake I made. Don't put your spade in your looting bag. But you will see a lot of PK'ers over here who will come in PK just because it is such a traditional spot. But if you kind of learn the basics on how to escape, it's actually quite safe. I'll post a link, but West Ham has a very excellent video on how to properly escape at Barrows. It is legitimately one of the best guides I've ever seen, not just in terms of Barrows, but also just teaching you fundamentals on like how you can get away. And again, like if we're just praying mage, like just look at how much damage we're doing. Like I don't even have any mage sigils on, right? And we're just praying the right thing, hitting the boss with air spells. They get absolutely nuked, right? It's really, really safe. And even if you kill, like, let's say you kill like 3 of them, but then you die, you come back, but your progress is still saved. So it's just a very, very easy way of getting some loot and stuff like that. Downstairs is a little bit annoying when you get down to the crypt because of the fact that when you do loot the chest, it can be a little bit annoying. You can't instantly teleport out. You kind of have to like escape combat or have some teleport. So it can be a little bit annoying when you're downstairs and stuff. And I'll kind of show that off real quick. Like let's say I go through and stuff. I won't always be able to teleport away. Also, ignore all the mobs and stuff like that. Don't even worry about that. Like you're not really here for runes and stuff. You're just here for uniques, and that's actually the thing that makes this pretty good is the fact that with the boosted drop rates and stuff, you do have a very consistent way of getting uniques here, right? Not every unique is the same. Some of them are pretty bad, but if you're getting stuff like Carols or RMs, those can go for like over a mil. So you can actually like kind of high roll and get some of the better pieces as well. And honestly, I don't know. Barrows to me is just such a vibe, and I kind of love it. But here, let me show you what I mean. Where like if I'm stuck in combat here, I won't actually be able to teleport. So if I like loot my chest, let's assume I kill this guy, right? I do kind of have to escape combat, and that can be where it's a little bit tricky. And you might need to sort of run back to your ladder to get back to safety and not get stuck. Basically, I think all the ladders are actually here too, which is kind of nice. So that when you do loot your chest, right? I got my clue scroll, cool. I'm kind of stuck here in combat and I need to like sort of get away from these rats and stuff and try to find my way back to a ladder. So that's kind of the one annoying thing about Barrows. But overall, it's a classic for a reason. I felt like I couldn't make a video talking. Oh, no, sorry. The ladders aren't here. You do have to go back to your starting ladder. Like I felt like I just couldn't make a video without talking about it. I think Barrows is just so classic, so standard. And you can have a lot of fun in here, get a lot of points from doing all the combat achievements and doing all the runs. If you're probably one of the lowest accessibility things, period. If you have the sigil of eternal belief, you can actually use that. And if you drain your prayer to 0, it won't actually get rid of your overheads. So I'll kind of chill here, and you'll see that I'll go to 0, and my overheads will stay the same. So honestly, you could probably just be on like the normal prayer book and just like do this. Put on magic and melee, tank the damage from Carol and RM, and with 0 prayer, you can just chill here the whole time. So, really, really nice unlock. And that's the Eternal Belief sigil. Let me just show that real fast for those who miss Eternal Belief. So you don't actually lose prayer, and your overheads will stay. See, I'm at 0 prayer. So again, I think this is really awesome. And you can come back up and just start another run, or do the Drayman staff, do all that stuff. If you have the magic level, putting a Barrows teleport in your house is really good as well, just to get back here super, super quickly. You don't even have to deal with the fairy ring. That's a great option. But yeah, I would say in terms of loot for Barrows, I'd probably put it at like a 2 out of 5. I don't think the loot here is great. It's a little inconsistent. You don't really have a lot of like backups. In terms of accessibility, 5 out of 5 by far. I think this is just so easy. Like literally, you could do this 30 minutes out the gate. You could probably be doing this. I really feel like it's not even something worth like training or going out of your way for. Basic mage sigils like Meticulous Mage, Menacing Mage, Arcane Swiftness if you have that. And then for the risk potential, I would probably say like maybe a 2 out of 5. There is almost always, I feel like there are PK'ers here. Like it's very rare that it's like this empty, but you have a lot of good options to get away. And I think it's also a very good chance for you to sort of build those fundamentals of escaping, right? Oh, look at this guy, New Barini here, right? And you can kind of sort of up your risk and bring whatever you want as you sort of feel more and more comfortable, right? Use your spade to get away, use the crypt to get away. Again, check out that West Ham video. It will teach you a lot of those fundamentals. So that is Barrows. Next up, let's talk about Zulrah, which I think is one of my favorite bosses to do for DMM because the uniques that you can get from Zulrah are absolutely sick. I actually did do 100 from Zulrah already. I didn't get a single thing. So that kind of sucks. But you do get a lot of the other drops as well. These Zalandra teleports, by the way, are actually really, really good. I've been kind of slowly selling them off for kind of a while now. But let me see if I can actually show you guys how much these Zalandra teleports sell for real quick. Okay, they're a little bit okay. They're a little cheaper now. So I think they're going for around 10k. But even at like 10k a pop, I mean, that's like not bad at all to be getting these teleports and stuff like that. Now, how do you actually get over to Zulrah? Because Zulrah is found on an island, right? The first thing you want to do is when you are doing Zulrah, you kind of want to go over there with the most minimal gear. Like I'm talking completely naked, okay? Like literally, let me just show you guys. I'm gonna go completely naked, bring absolutely nothing except a Drayman staff, right? And that's because before you do any Zulrah, you have to like volunteer yourself as tribute. And the worst thing that you could possibly do is head over there with like a decent setup, and then you die because you're out there talking to a freaking NPC. Okay. So we're gonna bring the Drayman staff, and that's it. To do Zulrah, you do have to unlock the Roving Elves questline. It's like 500 points, but that's pretty cheap, I would say. So not that bad. We're gonna head over to the Fairwing BJS, Big Giant Snake. Now, if you want, you can also use the Zul'Andra teleport to kind of like hot drop right in. But I kind of like the idea of sort of, scouting it out first and taking a little peek before you kind of drop in and stuff like that right in the middle of this town. And then you'll talk to this high priestess to like sacrifice yourself, do all the things. Basically, I would say just go check one time that you can get onto the boat and stuff like that. And then basically the teleport that you go here will take you like right into the middle of the town if you want to use that. But the thing that makes Zulrah really cool is that it's in an instance, which means that you can actually start to bring some pretty good gear setups. The two setups that I would personally recommend would be a mage setup. You can go quite cheap with a mage setup. Similar to Barrows, Zulrah has a fire weakness. So what you'll want to do here is go for like a Tome of Fire, for example. You can probably bring like a staff is fine. I probably wouldn't bring like Twin Flame or anything like that, but yeah, I think a Staff of Air Tome Fire is perfectly fine. Highly recommend that when you are doing Zulrah, probably want to grab the Titanium Sigil if you have that, because Zulrah does do a lot of chip damage. If you have Titanium and Restoration for the lifesteal, you'll actually be able to not really take too much damage. And then Meticulousness will also carry you a lot. I think with Meticulousness, Tome of Fire, Fire Surge, Fire Wave, whatever, you actually do a lot of damage to Zulrah when you're fighting the boss. Now, here's sort of the important thing about doing Zulrah kills once you're kind of ready to go and you've got your setup, whether that's a more conservative option or you want to kind of ball out. I personally got the Corrupted Volatile Nightmare Staff for around 800k. So I was using about a 1 mil to 1.5 mil setup, maybe throw in some Zuriel armor for feeling confident, you know. But I would just either mage it all, or if you want to go to the next level, you can try to bring like a Corrupted Twisted Bow and go for like a range setup, maybe a Rune Crossbow with a Gunslingers. Maybe that's fine too, right? So you can go for like a full range setup, but I wouldn't really worry about bringing too much in terms of swaps and try to focus on one setup and get those kills. Here's the thing about Zulrah is that when you actually kill Zulrah, you can't reset the boss. You have to take a scroll that will teleport you back to the city. And I basically guarantee you that at any hour of the day, if you open up like the Twitch live streams, you will see that there is like half the freaking PK'ers are sitting here at Zulrah waiting to kill people. So this place is always packed with people trying to one-shot you, right? So the first time you get in, it is a little bit scary. You are going to probably want to be ready to kind of either get lucky with nobody being there, or just, spam eat your food and get onto the boat. Once you're on the boat, though, you're kind of safe, right? Now, after every single kill, instead of taking the scroll out and resetting, what you're actually going to want to do is you're going to want to log out, because when you log out or when you hop worlds, instead of being teleported back to the middle of town, you're going to be spawned right next to the boat. You'll see right now I'm going to spawn and I'm literally right next to the boat. So unless there's somebody sitting here like trying to Darrock bomb me and they get me on the like exact tick that I spawn, I could just go right back onto the boat and I'm good to go for my next run. So it's kind of like an instance, as long as you know this trick and you're not constantly doing this run across the dock. You're not really risking that. you'll just log out or hop worlds, quick board again, and you're right back into your next kill. And again, you'll do that after every single kill once you kind of got on your loot and stuff like that. But yeah, I think Zulrah is a fantastic boss. The Onyxes go for a lot. The Serp Visages go for a lot as well. Yeah, I feel like the other drops that Zulrah has are not great, just because really there's not like that much value of like mahogany logs and all that stuff, the snake skins and whatnot. But the teleports do still kind of retain a pretty good price. Um, the scales are pretty much worthless. The logs, like a lot of that stuff, is kind of worthless. The Dragon Bones drop is actually really good. I got a lot of Dragon Bones, got a lot of money doing that. So and there's also like Dragon Med Helms, Battle Staves, Dragon Halberds, those kind of Alex that are always going to retain a very good price. So if you're really going to do a boss, especially if you're looking to do like a mage or a range boss, Zulrah is absolutely excellent. It does give a lot of points as well. And you can probably get like 1 minute kills. Like you don't even get to the Jad phase. So for Zulrah, I'm going to say that this boss, in terms of accessibility, is probably like I'd probably call it like a 3 out of 5. You can definitely do it with a cheap setup with not the best stats. However, I think that you definitely want to be having titanium, restoration, and meticulousness. So you are going to kind of want that starter setup at least, if not better gear on top of that. Yeah. So the sigil setup is not like the cheapest and stuff like that. But outside of that, I mean, again, you can bring really really cheap gear, ring of recoils for the little snakelings, and you're totally fine. In terms of loot, I would probably call it like a 3 out of 5. You are kind of chasing those uniques, so the loot here is not the most consistent, but it's still pretty good. And when you do hit those Serp Visages, those honestly, I think it's like a 1 in 25 of the top brackets to get stuff. So honestly, it's pretty reasonable that you are going to hit something and you're not going to go 100 dry like me. So that's yeah, very good, very very good boss. And then in terms of risk, I'll probably call this boss like a 3 out of 5. It is always a little bit dangerous. Like the first time you get in here, it's always dangerous. I feel like you are kind of like flipping a coin that there's going to be some absolute demon here, just ready to barrage you, ready to hit you with the Kopesh, all that stuff. But as soon as you get in there, if you know this logout trick, you can actually stay here for really long sessions. 30 kill, 40 kill trips easily with the looting bag, and then cash out, get some really nice drop, and you're essentially 10xing your setup easily. Okay, so that's Zulrah. Again, one of my favorite bosses. Highly, highly recommend. And I do apologize. I know I am kind of yapping a lot and talking about stuff that is not entirely related, but I feel like for me, the general boss like philosophy and how you assess these bosses is going to be more important to help you not just become better at DMM, but just better at seasonal modes in general. So that's why I like to try to throw it in rather than just telling you exactly what to do, because a lot of Deadman mode is sort of thinking on your own and being able to assess your own risk. All right, we're almost on. The next boss I want to talk about is Vorkath, which is something I started with at the start. And I personally think that this boss is just one of the best bosses, like bar none. I think Vorkath is a great goal to hit if you are interested in. I've seen people doing it with a range setup. I haven't seen anybody doing it with mage. I would not do it with mage. I've seen people doing it with like range, with like a blowpipe or a rune crossbow. I personally think melee on this boss is absolutely ridiculous. I was using a Vesta Spear for a while, which is a great stab weapon, and it's a 5-tick weapon, so it works great with Swashbuckler. If you really want to ball out, Ursine Chainmace goes ballistic on this boss. You can go with the Vesta's Longsword, which is like maybe 2 mil, a little bit cheaper. But you can really try to bring a very, very big setup to Vorkath, because Vorkath is in an instant. You don't even really need to bring like I was bringing extended anti-fires and praying mage, and with enough damage and with enough lifesteal, you're not really actually like taking you don't actually really take damage on the boss. You might dip a little bit, and you might have to like brew once or twice, but for the most part, you're still really really safe, and you can be there for. I think the first time I went there, I did like a 20 kill trip. No problem at all. So yeah, you can actually start to kind of ball out on this boss and bring a little bit more gear. And another really cool thing about Vorkath is the power of Salve Amulet. If you have done Haunted Mine and Tarn's Lair, go get your Salve Amulet and you get that extra like 20% because it's undead. And this thing is like completely worthless. So you go get more of these for free, right? It's like a really, really insane power spike. You don't even need to bring like a black mask. On the subject of Slayer, however, if you are doing a Blue Dragon task, you can do Vorkath for your Blue Dragon task, make insane amounts of money, get all your points from doing your Vorkath. And you're also progressing your Slayer because, again, just like Amoxliatl, when you're doing a Slayer task in an instance, you don't take that penalty from combat. Now, when it comes to other requirements for Vorkath, you do want to have a pretty good build. I don't think you could go in here with like a dragon longsword. Maybe you could. I don't know. Maybe you could come in here with a dragon longsword. I probably wouldn't recommend it. I'd probably recommend maybe bringing a fang or a Vestus spear, something like that. Having a little bit more. And then most importantly, you do have to invest in the Dragon Slayer 2 lamp, which is 5,000 points. It's not that cheap and stuff. So yeah, that's another thing you definitely want to make sure you have enough points for. But I think Dragon Slayer 2 is a really, really good buy if you're confident with Vorkath, because Vorkath is just an absolute money printer. You get so much good loot from there. Dragon bolts, dragon darts, like most of my loot tab of like random dragon items and stuff comes from that. I have a ton of hides. I have bones that I'm getting from there. One thing I would actually really recommend for Vorkath in particular is this thing called the Trinket of Avarice, which will automatically note and like scoop up all your drops. And this is really helpful for all those blue dragon hides, because those blue dragon hides actually do go for a lot of money because people are training crafting and trying to make the random D-hide sets and stuff. So it's super worth scooping up all these hides and selling them. Again, I have literally hundreds right now that I could be selling off 4K, 5K a pop. Maybe not quite that much, but you get the idea. Like you can get a lot on those hides and stuff like that. And then again, dragon darts, dragon bolts, not a lot of crazy uniques, right? Like you're not really getting anything insane from Vorkath. I got this dragon bow necklace, which is basically completely worthless. But bosses like this that are actually consistent money in terms of alks are typically going to be more preferential to get you started and be like a safe baseline, because you're always making money on every single trip. So if you go in there with literally nothing but like a dragon longsword and some rune plate body and stuff like that, and just do like 1 or 2 kills and just kind of get it done, you'll actually make some pretty good money back. Now let's talk about actually getting over there. One of the easiest ways to do that is to put your house in Relica. However, what you'll probably notice is you'll always have a couple demons who are sitting out here trying to catch you, because the distance from your portal house, to Relica is actually dangerous, right? So you see, sorry. So you always see a couple people here. You might want to scout it out and stuff like that. It's just like a nice way to sort of avoid. But yeah, you basically be ready because you might have to sort of tank the freeze. And once you're inside of Relica, though, you are safe. Now, the tech that I have been sort of sharing that is a little bit, that I consider to be really, really insane, is these Fremenic sea boosts. If you have done the diary, right? So let's say you've done the Fremenic diary, you can actually get a teleport to Relica every single day, and you can actually skip that. You could also go east to this one, like this DKS, and run, but I wouldn't even recommend. I would just recommend going and doing your diary and chilling, right? Getting your sea boots. Now, the thing about the Fremenic sea boots is you would ordinarily only get 1 teleport per day until you got the elite done. But they actually changed that, and I think now you get 3 for medium and 5 for hard. So if you actually do your diaries, you can get a couple teleports here and basically skip this little danger zone. Again, don't tell the PK'ers this, okay? I'm trying to keep this a bit of a secret. So you can skip this and come out here. Now, I want to show you right here. This tile is marked because at this exact tile, you are actually danger again, okay? So be careful, because I've seen this happen before. Some guy is fishing here, and then they bust out like a Void Waker, and they try to blow me up in 2 seconds while I'm trying to hit this boat, okay? So be a little bit careful when you're coming out, okay? It's not multi, it's all singles here, right? The boat. Now, there's one more dangerous area. This is another really big popular PK spot, is you'll have some guy who is usually sitting at the top of the thing, and they're waiting to see your name, and then they'll try to like get a combo out on you before you can react and before you can come back. And if you do take the boat back, they might be able to follow you and hit you here as well, right? So that's like the 2 big danger zones, is that initial part and then this little run up. But just like with Zulrah, as soon as you go here, and you might want to go here with absolutely no gear, because the first time there's like a little dialogue, so you don't want to get stuck on that. As soon as you're in here, you're in an instance. You are 100% safe. Nobody can touch you. You're chilling, right? You're totally chilling here. You can sit, you can eat, you can go to the bathroom, you can get your gear set up, all done and all set up. And then you can start fighting the boss. And again, you could be doing 10 kill, 20 kill trips here very, very easily with good gear. And that's why I recommend for these big bosses and stuff like that, you do want to try to sort of get that confidence to bring better gear setups, because you don't want to be stuck in here with a Dragon Longsword doing 5-minute kills when you could have brought like a 2 mil or a 3 mil setup. Now you're getting 2 times, 3 times the kills, right? And that tiny little risk that you're doing here it's like worth the gamble at a certain point, you know? Obviously, it's up to you guys. I'm not going to tell you guys to go crazy and bring like a 20 mil setup to every single Vorkath trip. But I highly recommend that, if you're feeling confident, start to scale up that gear for these instance bosses because you will see that pay off. And again, because you have lifesteal, the more damage you do, also the more lifesteal you get, so you can actually sustain longer. Now, for the boss itself, again, you don't even really need a Dragonfire shield. I usually just like pray mage. I can't do it right now, but I'll usually like pray mage and maybe have an anti venom plus, which you can buy for like 2K, extended anti fire, and then I just bring blighted overloads, some brews, a couple of restores. I think when you're on the ruinous power spell book, or I'm not sure why this happened, but I was having something happen with Vorkath where the pink one that disables your prayer, it just didn't even do anything. So yeah, it just didn't even do anything. But as long as you keep your antifires up and all that stuff, the doesn't really hit too hard. You can lifesteal it. Maybe just bring a dragon shield if it's hitting you pretty hard. And yeah, just chill, kill the boss. Again, good options are Fang, Vesta Spear, basically any good stab weapon. You don't need to go super crazy. Ursine Chain Mace, if you can try to ball out and bring the really big setup. But yeah, there's a lot of really great options here. I think even something like as simple as like I don't know, let me see. I'm sure there's some like decent stab weapons, but like even something like the Tech Paddle, right, which is like the stab version of the Sulfur Blades. Even something like that is going to be totally fine for this boss, and you're going to get a lot of really effective kills, a lot of your damage back, and really just start to kind of secure your financial like stability in the game mode. So I really love this boss. I think it's amazing. This was like the boss I basically did every time I got wiped in the past. I would just go and do this boss a couple times and make it back and all the different loot and stuff that you get. Okay. Anyways, in terms of risk, I would say this boss is a 3 out of 5 because you do want to bring a good setup. I don't think this is a boss that you want to go with like a 200K setup. You do kind of want to be bringing like 1 mil, 2 mil, something like that. Like you want to be a little bit more confident and stuff. You do also like you're almost always going to see a PK'er like through the day. Like you might get lucky, right? But if you're doing like 100 kills here, or if you're spending a lot of time here, expect to see PK'ers and just be ready to either like teleport out with like a ring of returning or something like that. You can try a tank test, but I would just if you see somebody, just teleport out, right? Like teleport out, hop worlds, wait 5 minutes, let them get bored, something like that. You know what I mean? Usually you can kind of reaction test them if you're on top of it and you're not playing at bad ping. Now, in terms of loot, I think this boss is a 5 out of 5. It is absolutely insane, the loot. The points here are also really, really good. It is consistent loot, so you are not like waiting for a high roll. You are just always, always going to be printing money, and you can stay in here for a really, really long time. Again, I talked about that avarice that's going to note all those drops, and you can literally come out with 2 mil, 3 mil every single trip. And that will just very quickly pay for any deaths that you might incur. So this is a very, very wonderful place to sort of build your bank. I also don't really know if this counts for loot, but again, you can do Blue Dragon task here and get insane Slayer experience. Instances do not kind of tax you, so that's really good. Yeah, I'd say loot 5 out of 5. You don't get the full combat experience in here. You do get the diminished because it's an instance. So, if you are trying to train your combat, you might want to do that somewhere else first. And then once you have like 90s in your combats, then you can come back and do this because better, like the higher your kill efficiency is, the better you're going to be doing here. And then finally, in terms of accessibility, I'd probably put it at like a 4 out of 5. You don't need to be absolutely crazy to do this boss. Like you don't need the most ridiculous setup, but you do need to spend 5K for Dragon Slayer too. That's a pretty big investment. You do need to sort of be willing to have things like titanium and things like meticulousness and all that stuff. And this is probably the best example I could say of like a boss that just allows you to use these sigils to bring relatively budget setups and still do incredibly well and stuff like that. So, Fang is like 1 mil and stuff like that. Thralls or actually you can't use Thralls here. I should have said this earlier, but you can use Thralls on most other things. You'll probably bring like Crumble and Dead and stuff like that. That's actually why this is a little bit risky too, is you can't actually freeze. You kind of just have to accept your fate if there's a PK'er on you and just try to get away from the boat. But I don't think it's too hard to get away. Yeah, accessibility. So yeah, let me go through that again one more time. Sorry. Risk 3 out of 5, loot 5 out of 5, accessibility probably like I guess that would be like a 2 out of 5 accessibility because it is kind of tough to get started on this boss. You do have a lot of like prerequisites to go, but once you unlock it and once you can start getting consistent kills here, you are basically setting yourself up for success for the rest of the game. That is Vorkath done. There is one more boss or series of bosses I wanted to talk about. And this is going to be sort of like my higher end. So this is for somebody who is already pretty set up, maybe try and do something a little bit more fun, and that is going to be Desert Treasure 2. And specifically, I think Vardorvis. But you could also do Duke, you could also do Whisper, you could do Leviathan. It's kind of up to you based on what you want to do. Now, the reason why Desert Treasure 2 is so good is because it has absolutely insane drops in the form of Virtus. Virtus is the absolute best mage gear that you can get. I think currently it's selling for about 12 to 13 mil per item. Again, in the main game, that sounds like what the heck? That's like a steal, right? But that's a lot of gold in DMM. You can get a lot from that, and even hitting one of those drops can basically set you up for all the for fun action that you might want to have. Right? Why is Desert Treasure 2 so hard to do? Well, the biggest problem is that you can't actually auto complete the quest. So I haven't even done this quest yet. I'm actually going to be doing this probably today. But you have to actually go and manually do this quest. Now, you can get Secrets of the North done, which is a 5,000 unlock for Majorat 2. Desert Treasure 1, which is Majorat 1, that's 1,500. So that's 6,500 just to unlock half the quests. And you still have to do all this stuff too. So there's actually a lot of like requirements they have to do. Plus, you have to actually go and do the quest, which is a pretty long quest. There's some requirements and stuff, not anything too crazy. But yeah, not a lot of people want to go and do the quest. However, they can use all the items even without having completed it. So they can use Virtus and stuff like that. So it will retain that really high value, especially towards like the finale. You're going to see people buying it for quite a lot. So they will be picking it up probably around middle of week 2 and stuff. Once there's more PK'ers in the top bracket. Unlike things like Vorkath, the Desert Treasure 2 bosses do not have like the most generous drop table, right? They're not great, but they do kind of make up for it with those really big, unique drops. So if that's something that you like, if you like chasing those like kind of big payouts and stuff like that, and you're confident doing those bosses, I would 100% recommend. Now, I usually like to do Vardorvis or Duke. Those are kind of my preferred bosses. Let me actually get over there real fast. I actually don't know the fair ring. One sec. There is a lot of risk going over to these bosses. On top of all of the requirements to get over there, there's also a lot of risk, right? Getting over to Vardorvis is probably the hardest because you need to get you can't actually use like the tablet or whatever that you get. You can't do that. You can't take like the fast teleport here with the Ring of Shadows. You kind of have to take like the whole run across. Now, there's a couple ways of doing that. You could try to like sneak your way south through here. Now that Varlmore's unlocked, I don't know how crowded this is, but you could try to sneak your way here, right? Most people though are going to be looking at this fairy ring, BLS, right? Well, let's just go over there and see what happens. BLS, right? Which is not only the fairy ring to Vardorvis, it's also the fairy ring to Chambers of Zarek. So this is a very crowded place. And if I step out just a little bit here towards the boat, I believe it's also multi when you get close to the boat. So very, very populated spot. A lot of PKing goes on there. You know, you got chambers and stuff as well. Oh, I don't know if this. I don't think this part is multi, but I think when you take the boat over here, this part is multi. So again, I can't show it, but yeah, you'll take the boat here. There's a little run that you have to do. I'll see if I can kind of show you. You'll do a little run here like this, and then here, and you'll run like this, and then you're in. Right. This part is multi. It's very scary. If there's a team on you at this point, you're probably screwed. You're probably screwed. So good luck. You could also try to take the minecart and run south like this. That's like another option if you want. I wouldn't really recommend it because you might have people camping this minecart too. So again, you can try to be sneaky. Maybe you just kind of walk it out and just kind of see people instead of teleporting and having a reaction test. Maybe go south like this. Just be a little sneaky. But just like all those other instance bosses I talked about, once you're inside, you can be in there for a really long time. Vardorvis has chip damage. That's like the main thing that makes it difficult is the chip damage that Vardorvis does. But if you have lifesteal, which is built in, you can more or less heal all that. And you know, as long as you know what you're doing with the axes, you're not just like constantly getting one shot. You can stay there for, I'm not joking, I think I was there for like a 200 kill trip last DMM. And that was with way less power than you have this. I would recommend not bringing a super, super expensive setup to something like this. Maybe bring like a 3 mil, something that you're like comfortable losing, but it is going to do a lot of damage because again, the more damage in here, the faster your kills and also more life steal that you're getting. And once you kind of hit that critical mass where you're dealing enough damage to life steal all the damage, well, then you're completely solid, right? So yeah, I'm very, very good spot for Vardorvis. I'll quickly talk about the other ones as well, right? I don't think the others are quite as good just because first off, I just think Vardorvis is a very fun boss. Ultor Ring is really, really good. The others are not bad either. I I think like Duke, for example, is a boss that you can do for pretty easy to do. You don't need like a ton of gear for. Whisper might be a little bit hard, but I think with there's actually an elemental weakness on Whisper as well. And then Leviathan, you could probably do that. You do, I don't know, you do probably have to bring maybe a corrupted twisted bow for like 3 mil. You kind of want to be bringing a decent setup for these bosses because if you're bringing like absolute dirt, like just terrible gear, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. But yeah, that's kind of the tough part about this. Now, I'll talk about the other bosses real fast though, in terms of like how to get to them. So you got this guy. This is Vardarvis, right? You take this or kind of sneak your way through. For Duke is a little tricky because it's over in Weiss. What I usually do is I just kind of risk it and take this icy basalt, or if I'm a little spooked, I might take this boat. Like this is a little bit crazy, but I might take the boat from Relica because it's pretty easy to get out here and like do that. But you can take the icy basalt and risk the teleport. You can also, I think there's a tool leprechaun here, which if you use the trinket of fairies, you can get there. Now the scary part about Weiss, and again I can't show it because I don't have it, is that I believe this run is dangerous. And then there's also the dungeon itself. I don't know if okay, I might not be able to see it because I don't have the quest, but basically, yeah, you'll do this little run here. I think it is multi. Then you have to kind of run through the dungeon to get over to Duke. Again, you can't use the tablet. And then there's another part. So there's like a couple doors that you have to kind of get through. But once you're inside of Duke, it's super easy to stay there for a really long time. He has basically no high like damage mechanics that are going to like deal you out, except for that one like freeze effect that can be a little bit annoying, and I don't think titanium reduces the damage from that. Now the cool thing about Duke, if you haven't done it, you can actually pre-prep. Like you can do a whole bunch of prep now to send like 6 kills in a row now, and once you get that going, it's actually like pretty chill and pretty fun and stuff like that. So Duke is an excellent boss that you can do. Get some Virtus. I think Magus Ring it's selling for like 4 mil right now, so not the worst pull to get. And yeah, the other drops, nothing too crazy, but again, you're kind of hoping for like a big Virtus high roll and stuff like that. Okay, let's talk about the other guys real quick. Sorry, I'm it's kind of hard without a map or being able to get there yet. But other boss is the Whisper. If you want to do like a mage setup and stuff, I would probably recommend like Corrupted Shadow, or you could try to use Elemental Weakness. I think it has a Earth weakness, and it's actually quite good with something like a Twin Flame. You can also maybe try to get an Eye of a Yak or something like that. But yeah, basically you're looking for a mage setup here. Yeah, something like that. But what I would actually do for this is to come over to the ruins of Camdazal. That's where it's at. Now you can actually get here in a couple ways. You could Lassar teleport and run down. If you want to be a bit sneaky though, you can also try to do like the Mind Altar teleport, for example, with the Archaeus spellbook. Put this in your house and then kind of come in here because there might be people kind of camping this area. Now, generally, if you're doing Whisper, people like to camp this area right here. This is where you'll usually see people, but I don't really see too many PK'ers here. I think it's generally pretty safe. You can like go from this bank and run and stuff. If you don't want to bring anything too scary, you can like stop here. But I would just kind of get in, and once you're downstairs, you just go. I don't think once you're downstairs, anybody can fight you. So this is kind of like the last place I think where people can get you. Whisper is really good. It's not the best because I do think it kind of like chews through your prayer. I don't know how that works with the prayer drain stuff, and a boss can be a little bit annoying with high damage because of how it phases and stuff. So I'm not a huge fan of Whisper. But if you hit the ring, it is pretty good. So something to consider if you want to go for mage. Now, finally, we got Leviathan. Leviathan is actually probably the easiest to get to because you can actually just take like Fairy Ring DIS to the Wizard Tower, which is right here. And then with Leviathan, you'll just go down to the basement, go to the Guardians of the Rift area, which I have no idea where that is. Yeah, I don't know where it's on my map. But basically, you'll go through like the Guardians of the Rift area and then basically take the little like abyss path to the boat and stuff like that. I think Leviathan is fine if you have a range setup. It's pretty chill to do. I think it's like a harder boss, I would say, compared to some of the others. Like I think Vardorvis and Duke are kind of trivial with all the effects that you get, but I think Whisper and Leviathan are still a little bit harder, even with all the buffs. So that's why I wouldn't really like super recommend them. But it's kind of up to you, whatever you want to do. And yeah, just kind of have fun with those bosses as well. Again, you're looking for Virtus and all that stuff. Let's wrap this up. In terms of Desert Treasure 2 bosses, accessibility is going to be like a 1 out of 5. Again, it's hard to get going, and doing Desert Treasure 2, you do want to have a pretty good setup. You have to go and do the quest. That can be kind of annoying. Kind of need good gear. You can't just like completely go with like absolutely nothing if you want to get any efficient kills. So that's pretty tough. but it is like a worthy investment, especially like right now, a little bit early on before everybody is kind of camping out these areas. In terms of risk, I would say like you're looking at like a 5 out of 5. Honestly, it's probably one of the more risky things to do. However, I will caveat that by saying that once you're inside, you are chilling for like an hour, 2 hour, 3 hours easily. You could stay there for a very long time and just blast the boss. And if you make it in one time, you can probably stay there until you get like a big drop and pay for itself. So that's really nice. And in terms of loot, I would say, probably like a 4 out of 5 here. It's hard to say because I think those big drops are so, so, so good. And, if you hit something like that, or if you get lucky, you can make an insane amount. However, I will just always caution that when you are doing bosses that do have sort of like these big jackpot kind of drops, while it may be fun, you can go dry even in a league's experience, right? And even something like Vardorvis, even something at a 5 times the drop table, right? It's still like around like 1 in 200 or so. And I don't want to be, I don't want you guys to like go over there and expect to get a drop. And then you're 100, 150 into Vardorvis and you haven't seen anything yet. So again, the downside with these bosses is just that their sort of baseline drops are nowhere near as good as some of the other stuff that you can get. And so, you could very reasonably go 100 kills dry of Vardorvis, not get anything. And you could kind of feel like, okay, maybe I should have spent that time doing something that is a bit more consistent. So this is more something that you want to do towards the end game when you're trying to hit those really big pulls and kind of get that really fun dopamine rush. Sell it to, some absolute demon who's going to be using it. But yeah, Desert Treasure 2, this is sort of your top end that I would recommend. Overall, though, those are my kind of recommendations for bosses. I hope that this helped and I didn't just end up, talking about nonsense the whole time. I'm still kind of waking up because it's been a pretty busy week and stuff. I'm still playing, farming, streaming like 17-hour days right now. So hopefully you guys learn from this and this can just be a nice little resource for you. Again, early game, Scurrius is great. Wintertodt, Tempoross, great. As you transition to those bracket 2, bracket 3, bracket 4, Amoxliatl, Moons of Peril, excellent bosses to sort of get started with bossing. If you want to hit Wildy, you want to do something a bit riskier with very, very like budget ass gear and just go in there, try to get some drops. Chaos Elemental is a lot of fun. Multi bosses with a squad can be incredibly profitable. Again, just be ready. You will get wiped at these bosses. And then for the more traditional standard type of bosses, Barrows, always excellent. Very, very low risk. You can bring literally nothing. Zulrah, excellent boss for maging and range. You can also melee it with Noxious Halberd. I wouldn't recommend it. Vorkath, I think, is just the king of DMM, honestly. Bring a big setup if you're willing to. Get more confident. Start, lining up the bank and just making a ton of cash off Vorkath. And that way you can start building better sets and, have kind of more fun. Because I do think at a certain point, it does get more fun to start investing in those very, very big drops. And then finally, if you're looking for something to do at the very, very peak, you are like, nearing max combat stats. You don't really know what to do. Maybe some of the other bosses are getting a little bit too crowded, or you've already gotten 100 kills there and you want to go get points somewhere else. Desert Treasure 2 bosses are just going to be sort of that pinnacle icing on the cake to round out the list. Guys, that's going to be it for me. Again, thank you guys for watching. I really, really appreciate all support. I really appreciate how many people have been tuning in for the Dead Man videos, tuning in for the streams, hanging out, chatting, sending raids, sending content together. It's been a lot of fun. We do have a friend chat if you're interested in joining. Join Hollow Teal. That's the friend chat, and just enjoy your DMM, guys. Honestly, I don't think it's hard to say this has been by far the best one, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. So get those points, get bossing, start getting some big loot, start upgrading those setups, and just have fun with the experience. That's gonna be it for me, guys. Enjoy your DMM. I'll see you guys very, very soon.